Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, here with my husband, Merle. How are you, honey?
Anxious.
Anxious?
Nervous.
Why? This is only like your 200th and something show.
I know, but this one's different. This one's different today.
You know, I was thinking about that. It's like, you know, it's become such a routine. I mean, this is 4+ years. And so it's like I get my tea, I get my my computer. We're good. We're good.
Yeah.
So you're anxious, huh?
Well, because I'm talking about our topic today, right? So our topic today is actually going to be a serious one. And mostly because, well, it is a serious topic, but we're seeing a ton of it, right? And so we're going to talk today about anxiety and depression with our kids and our kids, okay? And it's one thing when you have an adult that is struggling with that, but adults actually, they have a lot more action that they can take. But kids are often confused. They don't even really know what they're experiencing, and they just show the symptoms, right? And other people have to take it in and figure it out. And sometimes, you know, that gets us parents frustrated, but it also can be difficult for the kiddos.
Yeah, and as a mama, it's sometimes you feel helpless because you don't know what to do with help. I remember, hun, when our oldest was 4 years old and he had pneumonia and they put him in the hospital. And I remember that panic of, oh my gosh, my child's in the hospital. And I just felt so helpless. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed by that. Like, is he going to die? And what am I going to do? And, you know, it was one of that first times when I felt like I couldn't help them and I couldn't fix it. And it's scary. And so as parents out there, I'm sure your child is not listening to this on their own. It's you that is reaching out or searching for help because this is something that is really overwhelming and this is something in your family right now. So we're hoping that today's show really brings some peace and it gives you direction and some next steps if you have a child that seems anxious or depressed.
Yeah, so tune in and let's get into this. All right, before we start, let's thank our sponsors. We want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for being sponsors of the Rock Solid Radio show. So for any of your landscape needs or your construction needs, contact Casey's or Maxwell Construction to let them help you out. And so we just greatly appreciate those guys as usual for them continuing to support our messaging.
Yeah, and so before we jump into this topic with our kids, we do want to say something. If this is the very first time you've ever listened to Rock Solid Radio, it is part of a ministry of a larger organization called Rock Solid Families. And so Merle and I do faith-based coaching, and we work with individuals, sometimes kiddos, couples, families, and sometimes our kids are picking up on tension or insecurities or fears that are coming from mom and dad. And so if you are listening to this show and then you realize that maybe the tension or the anxiety is starting from me or us, then get help for that, okay? And so we do faith-based coaching every day in our office. We do it via Zoom all the time, and you can reach out to us at rocksolidfamilies.org. Or maybe your child is anxious because they pick up on some tension between you and your spouse. And so if that's the case, we have programming that can help you as a couple and as a family. And so really you can go to our website, rocksolidfamilies.org, or you can reach out to us at our office at 812-576-ROCK. So if this show kind of pricks your heart of, yeah, maybe that's why they're anxious, maybe that's why they're sad because mom and dad aren't together anymore or we're fighting, then please get to the source to help heal your family right.
Hun, as you say that, I just want to kind of express something that it comes up every now and then, but oftentimes we will get parents that ask us whether we will work with their child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we don't say never to that, but I think that it's worth us stating that sometimes parents feel ill-equipped to help their kids through anxiety and depression. And so they want to talk to a professional. And I think one of the things that we want to help you with is it's really difficult for us to greatly impact your kid like you can.
Yeah.
And so we don't ever say no to working with children, but we are so much ahead of the game at helping you guys if we actually can help you with the parenting of a child going through this, because you are the frontline counselor in that kid's life. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, then rather than bringing your kid in to talk to a stranger who they're probably not very comfortable with, and it's going to be such a short duration that it oftentimes just proves to be very fruitless, come in and let's work on some parenting approaches to help your kids, not with just depression and anxiety, but with a host of other things, behavior problems and things like that. And I think sometimes it's because parents are overwhelmed, but sometimes they just feel like, they have no clue where to start.
Yeah, they feel ill-equipped.
Yeah.
And, so part of our approach is that if you reach out and said, my 6-year-old has anxiety or my 12-year-old has anxiety, part of our approach is we want to meet with you as parents first.
Right.
And alone, without the child, because we want to be able to talk freely. We want to see what's been going on. Maybe there is something in the home, in the marriage that's going on that maybe you wouldn't have brought up if the child was in the space with us. Maybe there's things you've tried that have worked or haven't worked. Maybe they're on medication. Maybe they are talking to a doctor, whatever. We want to have that conversation first and then create a plan together. As you said, hon, and you're so right, like you are the front line there. You're with them a lot more hours than we are. And so if we can equip you and help you have some tools, then that's really what the show is about today too.
Right.
Is that we're not just trying to drum up business.
No.
We're trying to equip you so that you can help your child deal with some of these insecurities and fears and anxieties they're having.
All right. So let's get into our actual topic today, just about we're going to talk anxiety, depression, but we could throw in some other things, ADHD and different things like that. But I think one thing, hon, that's just as a background, COVID has been blamed for a lot of things ever since COVID. Okay. And I think we just better get a grip on a couple of things here. Actually, the rise and increase in anxiety and depression and ADHD has been a trend well before COVID. Yeah. COVID was like adding, a fuel to it.
Right.
But those things were already on the rise. And so we actually saw, like back in 2016, there were latest CDC results or research was showing us that we are having a significant uptick in these things.
Well, and I've just heard some recent research and conversation with some professionals saying that the hockey stick, and I've never really understood the hockey stick, but it's like that spike in anxiety and depression.
The bottom of the hockey stick
right?
is like this.
Down and then it goes up.
Shoots
so
up.
The hockey stick spike in anxiety and depression and mental health issues actually started back in 9/11. It was the undermining of that we're safe and that we're going to be okay, and that just the mistrust of our world today really started back for a lot of us and a lot of our young adults and stuff back then. And so now those children are having children. And so we have this anxiousness, having anxious children, and it's like they don't know they even have it themselves, let alone not project it onto their child. And so we're seeing now the second generation of a heightened alertness of anxiety and depression. And so that's really where it started. I actually have my 9/11 mug right here.
You do. You're just prepared and ready to go. Yeah, honey, I think that's really a significant point, because prior to 9/11, it doesn't mean we didn't have problems in the world, but we know from working with families and kids especially that the number one thing that we really have to operate to keep kids moving in the right direction is just security.
Yes.
They just need to know that things are going to be okay.
Yep.
And so parents were able to do that. But on a national level, when 9/11 happened, everyone was shaken at their core. Like, I'm not quite sure I can tell my kid we are safe.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gotten a whole lot better. And so when you see this everything the kid does. There's safety protocols written out. The jumping on a plane is harder. Traveling to school is harder.
Yeah.
There's all these different warnings and drills. And so there's constant reminder out there now that maybe we're not quite so secure. And so it's not just our kids, but it's how us as adults are reacting to every stressor that's out there that's increasing the amount of insecurity.
Yes.
And so that trickles out through our bodies as anxiety and depression. And so one of the keys, and we're going to get into more of these details, but first and foremost, like, we have got to grab the understanding of the need for security. And that's why we even talk about this, like when we have a failed marriage. And so we don't know whether they're going to mommy's house or daddy's house. Well, you just disrupted the security system to a major degree in this kid's life. And so security is at the core of teaching our little guys to understand what to be fearful of and maybe what not so much to be fearful of.
And again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that our world is looking great right now. But the reason why we call ourselves rock solid families is because we believe if you build your home and your life and your security on your money or, your whatever, it's sinking sand, that Jesus Christ is the rock that we can build our life on, that we can trust in, that we can lean on. And that is unshakable. And so, man, the work that we do, we say we're not going to make any apologies. God and his word are going to be the power that brings peace, that calms fears in your child, in your marriage, in your family. And if you don't buy what we're selling, I get it, but good luck. Good luck finding something that is unshakable, that you can hang your hat on, because this world is dark and that there is those things out there that scare us, but we don't have to be afraid because the Lord has said, fear not.
Well, and when it comes to also the importance of teaching our kids the eternal perspective versus the finite perspective of just life on this earth. Yeah. Because, in Matthew 7:24 through 27, it talks about in this life there will be problems. In other words, both houses get hit by storms.
Yeah.
And so even though we try to buckle everything up and we try to make sure we've got alarm systems on the house, we've got greater security measures at the airport, we will not get rid of all of these different attacks and fearful things. And so the eternal viewpoint, which sounds like, as you said, like almost like a crutch, it is essential to our well-being in the even here and now.
Yes.
The idea that, okay, even if we die here, that we have something great beyond that. And that gives, we know people that when they're very close to death, that when they finally come to terms with it, they'll even say, I'm ready to pass now.
I'm at peace.
I'm ready to pass, and they have peace. And it's, to somebody who doesn't believe in that eternity, they're even more fearful, like, this is it right here. This is it.
And there is a direct correlation between faithlessness and mental health issues.
Yeah.
Because faith is what gives you that peace and that joy and be able to persevere and have hope. And so as our faithlessness has risen, so has our anxiety and depression. Because you're looking for something to give you that peace that they can't give you. Even if it's a spouse who betrays you, even if it's a parent who abuses you, that is because we've put our trust in humans. We've got to put our trust in something that is trustable, that is unshakable, and that is the rock of Jesus Christ. And so if you're listening out there and you're a parent who is so desperate to help their child and you've not allowed them to feel that presence and the protection of God, you've left the greatest tool out of your toolbox, and that is the rock of Jesus Christ. And so if you don't have that in your life and you don't even know where to begin, call us. That's what we do every day.
And it's such an important point, because it is the human nature to want to seek out anything and everything they can to provide security.
Right.
Without even bringing God in the picture. People will be superstitious and they will wear the right shirt on a certain day to make sure things go. They'll have a rabbit's foot in their pocket for their lucky charm. I even ate the other day chocolate flavored Lucky Charms.
What does that have to do with anything?
Because it made me feel like I was even going to be luckier that day. And so the idea there that people are always looking for that edge to provide some security, something that's going to bring them up to their game. Okay. So it's intrinsically inside of us. But you're right. Like, at the end of the day, it's a rabbit's foot.
Yeah.
If it were so lucky, the rabbit would still be alive. Okay. So the idea here is we've got to attach to something that we say, you know what, without a doubt. And Jesus Christ does some pretty crazy things that make us either reject him completely or say, wow, what he offers is amazing.
So if your child you don't think is anxious and depressed, maybe they're angry, maybe they're acting out, you have behavior issues, maybe there's this hopelessness, despair, like they're all intertwined. And so these conditions sometimes are I can't even ever say that word, comorbidities.
Yes.
In other words, they coexist together. And so you may not think your child's anxious and depressed. They're just mad and they're disrespectful and they're acting out and getting in trouble at school. If you got them help and you really drill down, they're afraid of something. And we've really got to get them help to see what is it that they're so afraid of that they feel like they have to muscle up and be tough or bully or whatever that is.
And let's go through just some signs, because I think you just started on some of that a little bit, but let's just help, because I think some of these could be a trigger, like, oh yeah, I am actually, my kid is talking about that or complaining about that. So these are according to the CDC, but you know, Linda, you and I have worked with kids forever. I worked in the school for way more years than I liked even.
How many years was that?
20 years just at the elementary, where I got to see this age group that we're talking about today, but 32 years in school.
Yeah.
And I'll even say, like, I had my own personal struggles with anxiety. Okay. And so those personal struggles sort of make it even something I'm more aware of. I catch it and see it in people and myself quickly. But here are some things, some words and some things that you can notice in your kids. One are just generalized phobias.
Yes.
Everything from I'm afraid of the dark to just going to certain places and always hovering around your leg and not wanting to leave your side. Okay. So lots of phobia type stuff.
Yeah.
So not just fears, but excessive fears. So you'll have these kiddos who they're afraid to go to school. They're afraid to go to church. They're afraid to leave your side. So those are kind of in relation to some of those phobias.
Yeah. A lot of times we'll have kiddos who are afraid you're going to die.
Yeah.
Or they're going to die. And they worry about the future. What if you and mom and dad do break up? What if we have to move out of this house? What if I have to leave my friends? Like they ruminate on things that are out of their control and really just seem irrational.
Yeah. You might start to notice significantly different sleeping or eating patterns. Okay. And so I want to say that it's significantly different than what you currently see. If you always have a picky eater and your child's been a picky eater forever, and today, you know, is not a time that you run home and go, I think you have an anxiety disorder because you've always been a picky eater. No. But like if your kid normally eats, you know, a certain way, and then all of a sudden their appetite is gone, or all of a sudden they're gorging themselves and they're not going out and playing like normal, but they're sitting in front of the TV and they're just putting down a lot of junk food. These changes are things for you and I as parents to take note of.
Yes, sleeping is huge. And oh my gosh, if you've listened to Rock Solid Radio at all, you know that we are not fans of the family bed, because of this very reason, that usually when you have a child that sleeps with you, or you sleep with the child, or maybe you all sleep together, there is usually at the core of that some anxieties and fears. Sometimes it's the child, but sometimes it's the parent.
Yeah. Remember, we talked about the core of all this stuff is security. And so the family bed provides a very artificial form of security, but also keeps your kids stuck. And the parents sometimes even stuck in this.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we talk about somatic symptoms. So somatic means body type symptoms. And these are headaches, kids who get lots of headaches, lots of belly aches, stomach aches, just maybe they just even ache throughout the body. And so when we have a heightened awareness of this with our kids, then that also could be telling us, okay, there's a lot of anxiety going on
messing themselves, wetting the bed, things like that, having accidents. A lot of times that could be even a deeper issue of maybe something happened that they don't know how to handle, some abuse or some trauma that like they're so anxious about it. They don't know how to process it. So that's really a big red flag. If you do have an 8 and 9-year-old that all of a sudden is having accidents in a pattern, not just one accident, but like a pattern of them, then that's something you really want to get professional help for.
Yeah, another area is the fear of making mistakes. So you'll start to see this a little bit more when we get to be school aged, and even not necessarily just kindergarten, because a lot of kids come in and they haven't been exposed to a lot of opportunity to make those mistakes and have the mistakes called out. But all of a sudden they get into first, second, third grade and they start to know the difference between something that went well and didn't. In other words, an A and an F, like as a grade, and they see the repercussions of that. And so now they start to lock down with this fear of their performance and that they're going to fail. Okay. And so this is something for us to see where kids are starting to, they get sick on test days. All right.
They don't want to go play the game. They have a bad belly.
Yeah, we have a bad belly the day of the game. We have anxiety with those sort of things. And so these are things that you and I as parents just need to go, oh, wow, I'm seeing the pattern of this.
Yeah, I remember our little guy. We just wanted him to pull a card because he was so fearful of getting in trouble.
A behavior card for being bad.
Yeah, because he was so fearful of getting in trouble. Like he wanted to be a people pleaser, right? He wanted to make everybody happy. And we're like, just pull a daggone card, like make a mistake, so that
get over it.
Just get over it.
See that you can survive it. You'll live to tell about it.
You'll live to tell about it. That's right.
How about let's go through a couple different signs of depression because they are. So what's happening in the mind is very much the same thing at a chemical level. We've done shows on this before that we're talking about dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters that are sometimes out of balance or sometimes the body is not producing them well, okay? And that could be for genetic reasons or a whole other host of different things, bad diet, sleep, all these things. But it might manifest itself, the stress might manifest itself more in a depression line rather than an anxious line. Yeah. And so some of these signs, some of them are kind of obvious, like just this overall sadness, this hopelessness, like nothing ever seems to go right. A mopiness, the Eeyore sort of approach.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, just loss of interest. They don't want to play ball anymore. They don't want to go to school anymore. They don't want to have friends over anymore. They kind of lost their desire to do life. And so that's not a kid. And so that's not a healthy kid. And so we really want to drill down as to, okay, what's changed? Maybe they are being bullied. Maybe they did fail and they don't want to fail again. And so helping them get back on that horse, getting back onto the field or getting back into the classroom. The last thing you want to do, and you did this, hon, as a school counselor, is those parents that said, I can't get them to school. Remember, they would say...
the last thing you want to do, and you said, I did this?
No, that you had to deal with, I should say, is the mom that they would miss day after day after day because they just couldn't get out of bed and go to school. And man, when you feed that and you allow that, one, you can get thrown in jail because you don't take your kid to school, but that just kind of feeds the fire.
You feed the phobia, right? And so part of dealing with phobias is actually building up a desensitization of what fears you. And so, that's a whole different approach. We'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah. Other things, hon, we see this happen a little bit more with our middle schoolers into high school when they're dealing with depression and stuff. We'll see a lot of self-harm, injury where they're not having any feeling for life and they're getting to the point of this numbness and they have no interest in much at all. They're very dark and solemn. And so they'll start, in some cases, start to hurt themselves.
They'll cut themselves trying to feel again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, they would maybe not eat at all and they'll become anorexic, or maybe they'll eat and then purge, they'll become bulimic. And so any changes in eating habits, sleeping habits, maybe they say, I haven't slept in days. Okay. Right. Or maybe all I can do is sleep. Those really intense changes are something you really want to see as a warning sign.
Yeah. And kind of the elephant in the room that we just cannot not talk about is actual talk of death and or suicide. I mean, especially when we're talking about little kids. It's one thing when they've just realized that grandma or grandpa died and they have questions about death. But it's when they're talking about death for themselves. Like, I think I might be better off if I weren't here. I'm not sure why I'm here. And so when they're starting to talk about that death might be a better option than life, and it comes out in their age appropriate language, those are definitely red flags that we don't want to just ignore and act like, and as a trained professional, like when we hear things about suicide, we don't just say, oh, they're just trying to get attention.
Yeah.
Right. And they may just be trying to get attention, but that's not the assumption that we can work on.
And actually, if you think that is the case, you still need to look at them and say, what you're saying is very serious. And so what I hear you say is you want to hurt yourself. One of the biggest myths that I really appreciated getting busted, I did some training with some chaplains and some ministers. And one of the biggest myths I heard from a professional in this field was the fact that talking about it gives them the thought. Okay. It actually takes kind of the wind out of the sail. It actually kind of takes this, it
demystifies it.
Yes, exactly. And so you're not going to talk your kids into suicide by talking about suicide.
Right.
I actually want you to talk about it around the dinner table. And we have teenagers. And so we've literally said, do you guys hear about kids harming themselves or wanting to die? And it's really sad that how much they say yes.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it, even if it's not them, because then maybe the next question is, have you guys had thoughts about that? It's okay to ask that, because sometimes the kids just want to have a place to go with those thoughts and to be able to share that. And they're not trying to get attention. They're scared that they had those thoughts.
Right.
And they don't know what to do about it. And so that is really a way to just get the elephant, like you said, hon. I'm so glad you said it that way, to get it out of the room. Say, just bring it up. Do you hear your friends saying that? Do you ever think that or say that? And really kind of work with it from there.
All right. So let's drill down to actually equipping you guys as parents with how we can approach these things, a different mindset maybe on our perspective. Okay. And hopefully, and by the way, if you come up with questions, reach out to us, okay?
Yes.
Because there's not always a one size fits all when we're talking about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
The first thing I think it's important when I'm suspecting, so you may have heard some of the symptoms that we just talked about.
Yeah.
It is to seek the middle ground emotionally with your understanding. If you maximize or minimize, you will probably find yourself in trouble, okay? So if you heard us just say, hey, if your kid gets belly aches or headaches, they're anxious, do not go home and go, oh my gosh, I think,
they have anxiety.
Yeah, so no, take a deep breath, okay, step back. And so I don't want to minimize it to my kid. I don't want to say, oh, you don't have a headache. It's just, take a nap, you'll be good. No, I don't need to minimize it. I need to hear what they have to say. All right. But I don't need to maximize it. Like, oh my gosh,
catastrophize it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we want to just be careful, seek the middle ground. Remember, you are their leader. They're looking to see your reaction.
Yeah.
And when you handle it well and calmly, it'll provide security for them.
Yes.
If you dismiss it or you catastrophize it, you will drive them to those extremes as well.
Yeah.
And so remember, security is what we're seeking here, and getting our kids to see that mom and dad aren't panicked. I think we're going to be okay. Let's work through it.
Yeah. I just recently heard this from a counselor and I really loved it. And it says the 2 reasons we stay stuck. So let's say you say, oh, that's just my kid. They've been that way since they were little. And that's just the way it is. That's just who they are. Okay. When we stay stuck in that mentality, it usually is for 2 reasons. One is we've minimized it. We haven't really taken those warning signs seriously. Or 2, we project it on someone else. Like, oh, it's their fault.
Right.
When I'm out of school, I'll be fine. When I'm away from that person, I'll be fine. When we divorce, we'll be better. Like, projection just makes it someone else's fault, and you lose control and power over your own life.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you let your child know, hey, it's okay. I understand, we're going to get some help. Okay. And not let them blame someone else or let them say, no big deal. Okay. It is a big deal that you haven't slept in 3 days. It is a big deal that you're cutting yourself. We're not going to just pretend like that's okay. So when you don't stay stuck in that, then that's when you grow and get help.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the second thing that we want our parents to be aware of.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this in many different shows, but it really, is something to tune in with this. We're not going to react so much to a single one-time event of our kid being anxious before their first big play at school, the big ball game, and they're getting sick before the ball game. I'm going to take note of that. But what I'm looking for here are the patterns of
Yes.
behavior, okay? Because it is the pattern that reflects what the mind and body is actually doing on a regular basis. And so when I start to see that, every Friday when my son has a test in this particular class, every Friday I'm fighting him to get to school because he's got a headache. Oh, wow, this happens all the time when I have these stressors that are showing themselves. So we are all about patterns.
Yeah. Or maybe you're coming from a divorce situation and your child leaves every other weekend to go visit their other parent. And every time they come back, you see behavior issues. And that's, again, I'm not saying you go project it onto your ex. What I am saying is you talk to your ex and say, hey, we see this when he comes back from here. And so what is it that we can do to help and to make it better? Maybe it's that there's another woman in their life now or other kids in their life now that they have to adjust to. And so maybe they need some help with that.
Yeah. So some significant things I think that you and I find is these are like low-hanging fruit type things I want to see in the pattern. Is it a time of year or season? Like it seems like every time we get to this time of year, it seems like, okay, or a season. So, and we actually do know that seasons of life actually do bring on different types of depression and anxiety, or at least the likelihood for it. So how about like what people are involved? I notice that whenever you have to go interact with this person, maybe over at the ex's house where there's a new girlfriend or boyfriend, okay? So how about the different activities that the kid is involved in? Like I notice that every time you have to speak up, you have to give a speech in class, that this is what's kind of freaking you out.
That was our daughter, she hated English. And when it really drilled down, it was because she did not want to read out loud or have to do any speaking aloud. Yeah. And so we really have worked on that. Okay, this is a phobia, this is a fear, but you're going to be able to get through it. And she has been rocking it. And I'm so proud of her. But it really came down to that. Why do I hate English? It's because of this. And what am I afraid of when it comes to that? And so help your child identify and then really practice with them, whatever that phobia is, that they can work through.
Yeah, a little bit at a time. Yeah. The old idea that your kid can't swim, so you just throw them in the deep end. that doesn't always prove to be.
Have you seen those babies that they throw in? Yeah. They do. They throw these babies. We did that to one of our grandchildren. It was like, holy cow. But that actually helps them to kind of like flip over.
Yeah, they naturally do. I've actually watched it. It's like, you do that with your kid. I'll sit back here and watch.
You were a swim coach too.
I know that still makes me uneasy to throw a non-swimmer in the deep end. That's because there's a whole lot of other things that could end up coming out of that.
So far what we've said is that we're not going to go to the extreme. We're not going to minimize or catastrophize. We're also going to look for patterns, okay, and who or where or when. But then the third one is to effectively communicate with your child and teach them to do the same. So if you don't have a good rapport with your child, if they don't feel safe coming to you with their fears or when they feel bullied or when they feel upset, then if you just dismiss it or maybe you attack it and like catastrophize it, you're going to scare them off. So you really are going to have to spend the time to listen to them to make sure they feel safe coming to you.
Yeah. And you also have to give them the language to speak it. A lot of times, especially with our youngest kids, they don't quite know what they're feeling, right? I mean, they don't know. They don't know if this is anxiety they're feeling. They're making assumptions that maybe all the other kids feel the same way. So this is just what it feels like. So you have to actually start to train up some kids, actually many kids, in we sometimes use emojis. Yeah. Emojis, when you see a smiley face, a sad face, a crying face, an anger face, you can show that to a little kid and you can say, okay, so which one is this? Okay, which one do you feel like right now? And it's all we're doing. It's not a game. What we're trying to do is we're creating language for them to communicate.
Yeah, I actually work with a lot of kiddos, especially girls. We kind of internalize a lot more. And I do a little emoji game where I actually have these emoji cards and we do a little memory match and they may match grumpy. And then they have to give me an example of when they felt grumpy. You can get one of those little charts. You used to have one in your...
Jim Borgman, remember?
He used to have one of those little charts in your
cartoonist for the
office.
Cincinnati Enquirer.
But here's the point. screens have kind of hurt our ability to communicate and to
Mhm.
express ourselves in a healthy way. We just kind of bury ourselves and hide behind a screen now. And so you've got to, as a parent, help your child. And you're going to have to be intentional at the dinner table, in the
Mhm.
car, before bed. You're going to have to be intentional about communicating and really talking about feelings. How did you feel today? What happened there? How did that make you feel? Maybe even get I have a little mood meter chart where you can Google these and just print one off.
Get a mood ring.
A
No.
mood ring. Remember those?
I'm
Yeah.
just teasing about
No,
the
I'm
mood
just
ring.
kidding. Yeah. But to put a name to how you're feeling, that's
Mhm.
really important.
Yeah. So, okay, so now you as a parent, all right, one of the things that can be frustrating as a parent is feeling helpless yourself. And so there are some stages that we can go through, some low-hanging fruit in terms of what we can actually do simply, easily, and sometimes we just overlook it, like,
Yeah.
well, we don't know what to do. But we're just going to run through quickly. Like, these are some good, quick checkoffs.
Yes.
Like, are we doing well on this and this and this? Remember, we're trying to create security.
Yes.
Right. And so what would that look like? And so some simple things, I'll just run three of them. I use this all the time: sleep, diet, and exercise. These are natural antidepressants. Okay. That things that greatly impact those depression and anxiety in the mind. And so right off the bat, like even with my little kids, if my little kid is restless all night long and not going to sleep, or if he has no routine in bedtime, okay, or he's eating total junk food, sugars and carbs and all this stuff, all right, or if he sits on a couch all day long, there's three things right there I need to get after. I need my kid exercising every day. Exercise doesn't mean they go to the gym. It means they go out and they play.
Ride your bike.
Yeah, they run around. They yell and scream outside. They do these kinds of things because these things help to restabilize the mind.
Yeah. So let's repeat those again, because this is the cheapest therapy you're going to get: sleep, eating, exercise.
Yep.
Monitor your children and how they're doing there. And let me tell you, the number one culprit, which is number 4, which is causing number problem with sleep and exercise, is screens.
Yeah.
Okay. We are seeing a spike in mental health issues because of screens. And as the screen time goes up, so does the mental illness. And so anxiety increases, depression increases because we're not sleeping well. We've got phones in our room. And so the child supposedly is going to bed, but still is on a screen. And they aren't getting out and climbing a tree and riding a bike because they are sitting with a phone or a tablet in front of them. So please, please limit those screen times. The CDC says 2 hours or less. Okay.
Per what?
Day.
So, but the research also shows that if we want to stop addiction, less than 20 minutes at a time.
At a time.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's like that whole idea, even if I did 2 hours a day, especially for a young kid. Now that's all screens, by the way. That's not just
TV, Chromebook at school, all of the above.
And guys, here's the reason. Like, this is not just us chanting about this. Remember, we said that anxiety and depression is based off of imbalances with serotonin and dopamine. And I know now that screens are designed, especially video games, social media, these kinds of things are to be super attractive. Attractive means you stimulate the desire, okay? And that's dopamine. And so when I have my kids hitting the screen a lot, I'm automatically inflating their dopamine production, which means that once it goes high, it's got to crash. Boom. It's got to come down. And so I've set my kid up for an addiction problem with dopamine through the screen. And it looked like an innocent piece of technology.
As a matter of fact, I have kids that tell me that's how I relax, and they tell their parents this is how I chill, and the parents buy it hook, line, and sinker. Oh, well, they've been anxious or they've been sad today, so I'm going to give them a screen.
But it does work. It's like it does work. It's like if I were a smoker and I'm feeling irritable and I go out and I smoke a cigarette.
Right.
Okay, because the nicotine is actually also playing with the dopamine, and so it does work. But soon after it wears off, I'm craving it again.
It's kind of like the heroin addict. You know, solve when you're with withdrawal is to shoot up again. You know, that's what they think, and that's going to make them happy. And we know it can just lead to bigger crash and a greater and greater addiction. You start to almost like crave it. You have to have it, or you start to withdraw.
Yeah.
And that means it's an addiction.
Yeah. Another thing here, guys, is just who are your kids hanging around? Who are they hanging around? Who is their influence? Who's in their ear?
Yeah.
Especially when we start to get into those middle elementary years and into middle school, it's really critical, especially if we notice all of a sudden we've got behavior changes in our own kiddo. We're seeing anxiety, depression type symptoms. I do want to know who my kid is hanging around.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't mean that those other kids are the evil one that are causing it, but if they're seeing out of another kid a darkness or a depressive sort of thing, there is a social contagion to what is going on here. Okay. Yes. And so I do want to monitor, like, okay, so who are you hanging around? What are you guys talking about? How are you spending your time?
And actually, girls are horrible at this. The social contagion right now is an epidemic. And depression, I literally had a whole slew of girls, and they didn't even know they were each other were coming in, all from the same school. And some of them were friends. And it literally, they had this thing called their depression room. And they would go into their room and shut the door. And then they would like video themselves crying to one another or, having suicidal thoughts and having a plan. They would like read their suicide note to each other. And like, that's what they were feeding. And one kid would come into his parent and say, I think I'm depressed. And the child didn't even know what depressed is, but they've heard that word from their friends. And so please, if your child has a phone or a tablet or some way to communicate with friends, you need to be monitoring that. What is being said behind your back? Because gone are the days where you know who your friends are and know what's going on if you've allowed them to have this freedom without the responsibility of what's being said and done behind your back.
Yeah, man, that's a big one right there. So here are a few that I just want to run through quickly. The idea of, these are some physical things that you can do. Teaching your kids how to do some breathing exercises. We know that when we are anxious, our heart rate increases and our breathing rate increases. And so all of a sudden, the body starts talking to the brain and it sort of snowballs the anxious cycle. So by just grabbing hold of your breath, in other words, taking slower, longer, deep breaths. We naturally will try to do this where we'll just do a heavy sigh. Okay. But teaching your kid to do that more in a rhythmic way and just get a hold of your breath is just a helpful thing to do with your kids.
Yeah. Self-talk. What are you allowing your child to say and repeat out loud? If they are the Eeyore, like, I'll never get any better, no one likes me. Okay, if you just perpetuate that and let that happen, you're going to, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So help them with their self-talk. Maybe help them to pray. Help them to replace those negative thoughts with truths. And if you don't have a relationship with God, again, here's where the problem comes, because you don't even know what those truths are. What are God's promises? How has God designed you? Why are you here? If you have not really drilled down into a faith for your family, a foundation that you can build off and your kid can build off of, then they're going to find that hope. They're going to feel that hopelessness.
I mean, it's crazy to see that even in vitro, anxious mothers have more frequently anxious children.
Yeah.
And so we know that if the mother primarily, dad too, right, his mental health is important as well. But we know that especially in the nurturing years, that if mom is anxious, if she's depressed, if she doesn't handle her self-talk well, it is almost like this direct permeation right into the kid, and they start to show the same things. And so, like you said, hon, if you yourself are struggling in these areas and not knowing how to ground yourself, then, you could be part of helping the problem here by getting yourself some help.
Yeah. Again, we don't want you to minimize their fears, but we also want you to reassure them you're going to be okay. I hear you. We're going to get some help. Okay. And no one's going to hurt you. Like, we're going to surround you with some healthy habits, with some changes, with some professional help. And so we have that coming in our door all the time. And we want to work with you as a family unit. Do not bring your child in, drop her off at the curb or him at the curb and say, fix him. Okay. This is a family system issue that we're going to work on. And if mom and dad are willing to say, what can we do? What do we need to change? Then that's when we can get real help for the child.
One of the greatest things that we can change, and this is probably, we've seen it get more out of whack in the last 15 to 20
I know
years.
where you're going with this.
Your kids have to have, for good mental health, they have to have predictable and healthy routines. Okay.
And breaks.
They have to be able to know that in our house, it's not a matter of whether they like it. Again, providing it's a healthy thing, that they have to know that bedtime is 8:00. They have to know that in our house we eat, in our house we work, in our house we do this. We do these routines allow your kid to have some predictability.
Yes.
Anxiousness is when I'm confused. I don't know what's coming next.
Yes.
And so any place I can put some predictability, it automatically will incorporate security, a secure feeling. And so it is so important, especially for our younger kids, that mom and dad are aware of the routines that they're establishing. And you know what? It really helps everyone. All right. We always love to break routines when we have Christmas break and all that. And then all of a sudden we got to get back into our routine because the house is going crazy.
But I thought you were going to say this, and I know you're leading to this. It's got to involve margin. If you are eating out of your van, going through the drive-through, and the child is literally taking naps in the car because you're going to baseball practice or you got a football game or whatever, you're not giving that child that safe, secure feeling of predictability, okay? It is chaos, and that is happening in our world today. We are so overscheduled. We got 2 working parents feeling like they have to be the super mom and dad and take their child to every specialized special team and club team and all this special training. And it's destroying our peace in our home and our family. And especially if you have a young child that has to tag along while brother, sister goes to practice or you're sitting at a ball game, you're not helping that child feel safe and secure. And they don't have any normal bedtimes. Right. Eating around a dinner table, there's no predictability.
Yeah. So you notice we've gone through 4 different ways to help your kiddos, to help your family, and we have not talked about doctors, therapists, or anything like that. Yep. The 5th way, and I put it as the last way, is because before I jump to, unless I had a catastrophic event happen,
which we've had that.
Yeah, something big, just some trauma in the life, okay? Unless I have that, if this is something that has come on to us more slowly, then I want to make sure we've done 1 through 4 things. So you can go back and re-listen to those, okay? But when we have exhausted those, or we feel like, man, we are doing everything we can here, okay? Then we seek professional help. Yeah. This is where we do talk to doctors, okay? You did not hear Lynn and I say, no, medicine's ridiculous. It's no, like there's a place for all of that, but I got to make sure that I'm building the right foundation on all these other levels before I jump to the quick fix.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So doctors, therapists, counselors, getting therapy, these kinds of things are extremely effective. And that's why we function here as a ministry of rock solid families, that, we want people to have the tools to do what they need to in their own home, but we're here as the next level.
Yeah, that is so good, hon. You're so right. And that's why we want to meet with mom and dad first to kind of hear what's the environment, what are the stressors, how is the relationship, what have you tried? That's why we want to talk to you first, okay? Because here's the words of encouragement as we wrap up. Okay. One is anxiety and depression is extremely treatable.
Yes.
Okay. You don't have to live in misery. If you have a child who's living in misery, I don't want them to suffer. Okay. And if you have never gotten help for your anxiety and depression, it is treatable. Please, please don't stay stuck by minimizing the problem or projecting it on someone and make it someone else's fault. Get the help. Do your work and see great changes in your life.
Yeah, it doesn't have to define your kid.
No.
I've always been this way. This is how I am. It doesn't have to limit your kid. Well, I always wanted to be in a play, but I have stage fright. Like, these are the things that we want to make sure that this is not setting the trajectory for our kid in a negative direction.
If you've listened to Rock Solid Radio before, you know that we have 5 children, and our youngest 3, we are part of our family through adoption. And they came to us when they were 11, 10, and 7. And hun, when you say it doesn't define them, I think back on the phobias and the fears, the anxieties that they had. I mean, we had one who had to sleep at the base of our bed and our door. I mean, we would find this child at our door because they were afraid to be alone. They had to have all the lights on.
Our electric bill for that first year.
Holy cow!
We had to have every light in the house had to be on.
we had one who sucked their thumb in early elementary school. Like, there was such fears, and it was such trauma. They had severe trauma, and so we're not minimizing that. We're just saying, when we look at our kids now, and we see what God has done in them and through them, and how they have pushed past the anxieties and the fears and the trauma, and it didn't define them and limit them. They are thriving because they didn't stay stuck. They didn't just accept it. This is who I am, and roll over and be a victim. Like, they got help and they worked through those things. So please don't stay stuck in this fear and anxiety.
That's a great point, hon. That's so true. All right. So in wrapping up our challenge, take some time this week to be observant of where your kids are with these things. Okay. Just notice. And remember, it is the patterns I'm looking at. So we're not trying to get crazy on one-off behaviors, but check it out. Listen to their teachers, listen to people who have some input that are seeing some patterns that maybe you've either chosen to not see or you just simply did not see. Okay. Learn to talk with your kids. We've talked so many times, hon, about the dinner table. The dinner table is actually where Lynn and I do 99% of our family work. Okay. Because it's really
counseling room.
Yeah. It's really where we get to see more deeply, like, okay, what's going on in your world, and you can keep it fun. You can keep it lighthearted. You can use the age appropriate language with them, but that's where you're actually getting the best finger on the pulse of how they're doing.
Okay, so I've used this comment before too, and I just want to mention another tool, Mom and Dad, is to go on Amazon and buy some conversation cards. This was probably
We've got like 50 decks now. It's ridiculous.
But it has been one of the greatest tools we've used around our dinner table or in the car. We call it the question of the night. And they love it so much. Everybody has to have a question. We don't even just do one, because they want that conversation. They want to unpack their day and how they're feeling and what they're dealing with. And it's just been really in a very non-threatening way, a fun way at times. And that has really helped us to really keep our finger on the pulse of how our kids are doing.
The last part of this challenge, guys, if you've ever listened to Rock Solid Families, I hope one thing you get from us is we are not into building victims. We're not into building victimhood. We think it's one of the great curses of our culture right now because it sticks people. It ruins the quality of life of people. And so we want you to realize, do not let your kid be a victim to depression and anxiety. Okay, it's not a reason. It is an obstacle right now, and we're going to give them ladders, ropes, whatever it takes to get over the obstacle. We're going to give them the tools, all right? But they're not a victim, and so victim mentality is not going to help. Like, do not feel sorry for your kid because they're having depression. Recognize it, have empathy, and say, okay, let's move through it.
Yeah. So if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us at rocksolidfamilies.org, or again, call us in our office, 812-576-ROCK. If we can't help you, we will connect you with somebody who can. And again, like we said, Merle has suffered from that personally. We've dealt with that in our family. We deal with this professionally. And so we've seen it, and we know these are things that can help. And it doesn't have to take a doctor or medication. Oftentimes it's things that we can do just in our own home with our family.
All right. So thank you for listening. Please share this show. If it didn't hit a nerve with you, then share it with somebody that you might think it could benefit them. Yeah. Also, we want to thank Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for their continued support. So do us a favor, go out there and build a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day. Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.